MotherLand. I'm your host, Garth, and I would just like to welcome you all. I hope you all are enjoying your morning, whether you are traveling or going to work or you are at home. I hope you have a blessed morning. Let's get started. So, the purpose of exploring the motherland is to promote critical infrastructure and economic development for the benefit of the diaspora and the African continent. And we do this through our four main strategies through business, medical, cultural engagement, technological innovation, medical, business, technological innovation, and cultural engagement. Yes. And the purpose of this show is to keep you updated with the news in Africa and how it relates to our mission at Quest to Unite Africa. So without further ado, let's start. Botswana goes to polls as the country faces economic challenges. So I am going to spare you all the political minutia. The main point of this article is the people of Botswana are suspecting that the long-standing party in power has failed to meet their standard of economic development and critical infrastructure. In Botswana, there are a lot of people who are graduating out of college and higher education and are unable to get jobs. They fear that the political party that's in power right now is obfuscating the process of elections, and they are trying to keep their power. And the people of Botswana have decided to march and protest about their concerns about mainly the diamond mining industry, which Botswana is the largest exporter of diamonds, and they are very rich in diamonds, and the second largest diamond was found in Botswana. And the concern is how can they, further develop the mining industry so they could stimulate job growth and, economic development for their markets. And also, furthermore, is how can they get younger people jobs, and how can they do other things and other initiatives to help stimulate economic growth and progress.
And for our last story, let's move to Botswana, a diamond-rich country in southern Africa that is set to hold general elections on the 30th of October. The incumbent president, Mokgweetsi Masisi, is seeking a second term, which will extend his Botswana Democratic Party, or the BDP's 58 years in power. Under the BDP's rule, Botswana has gained the reputation of one of the most stable and prosperous democracies in Africa. But this time around, the party is expected to face its biggest competition yet. The opposition has been alleging vote rigging ahead of the elections. Over the weekend, several opposition activists took to the streets of the capital of Gaborone, and they were planning to march to Zimbabwe's embassy with a petition. The petition voiced concerns that the neighboring Zimbabwe is conspiring to help Botswana's ruling party extend its hold on power. But the protesters could not reach the destination. They were blocked by guns, batons, and shields wielding police who pushed them back. The BDP and Zimbabwe's government have denied the allegations. Before getting into more details, let us tell you who are the rivals fighting this election. Now, number one is the 63-year-old Mokgweetsi Masisi. He is the incumbent president who belongs to the BDP. He has been the president since 2018, when he ascended to the post after serving as vice president. He is a former school teacher who worked for UNICEF before entering politics. His report card so far has been mixed. He gained support in his first term for negotiating a new sales deal with the world's largest diamond firm called De Beers. The deal is expected to give the country a bigger share of its diamond wealth. But he has received flack by the opposition, who has blamed him for not doing enough for the economy. Now, during his term, Botswana witnessed high unemployment and lower growth. He has also received a political setback over his fallout with Ian Khama, the ex-president under whom he served as the vice president. Now, Khama accuses him of authoritarianism and is backing the opposition. Now, moving on to the second candidate, Mefato Riatile. Now, the 57-year-old is the leader of the Botswana Patriotic Front. This is the same party which is backed by the ex-president, Ian Khama, after he fell out with the incumbent Mokwetsi Masisi. Now, Riatile is a close ally of Khama, but his party received only 4% of the votes in the last elections. The third candidate is Duma Boko. He is a 54-year-old lawyer and the leader of the left-wing Umbrella for Democratic Change, the UDC, an opposition coalition and the BDP's biggest challenger. Boko proposes increasing the government's role in the economy. Boko's party challenged the last election as fraudulent at the High Court, which dismissed the case. And lastly, Dumelang Saleshando. The 53-year-old is the leader of the Botswana Congress Party, the BCP, and he describes the party as one of having social democratic principles and is campaigning with the motto, Save Botswana. And this brings us to the key issues in the Botswana elections. First is economy. Botswana is heavily dependent on diamond production for its economy. The country is Africa's largest and the world's second largest diamond producer. But in recent years, it has experienced decreased revenue for its diamonds because of a downturn in demand. While mining revenues drive economic growth, they keep fluctuating. So despite all of the diamond wealth, Botswana has a wide disparity between rich and poor. The country is also facing rising unemployment. Overall unemployment has exceeded 27%, and the youth unemployment has surpassed 45%. Government employees have been receiving delayed salaries as a result of the tight financial position. It's not just finance, but climate change is also impacting Botswana. The country faces frequent floods and drought, which has threatened its agricultural production and has caused food insecurity. Drought and desertification has risked the livelihoods of many residents. Now, with these issues, the opposition has been gaining popularity in Botswana. Even though the country for years has been stable, the upcoming polls amid the economic challenges could be a crucial test for the Southern African nation.
First Post decodes the U.S. election.
All right, so basically, Botswana is at a turning point, especially with the younger generation, the youth population. They see that their futures are in, the peril. Well, I'm not going to say peril. Their futures are very, uncertain. And they see now that they need to let the ruling party or whatever party who they decide to vote for. Again, we're not going to talk about the political implications. It's more about what they need. They need a way to stimulate jobs within the youth population. They need to find ways to utilize efficiently their mining resources so that the more people of Botswana can use that industry and market to their advantage, and it could stimulate more jobs and growth. And again, if you've been watching this show and exploring the motherland, this is a trend of the younger generation protesting or letting their voice be heard to the status quo of what they need, and their economic future and just their basic fundamental rights is in the hands of people who are corrupt, and they see it now. And this is happening in Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, now Botswana. As I said before, this is only going to continue in all parts of Africa where the people now understand the euphemisms, get the snakes out of my grass, is that they see now there is a shadow, or there's a snake lurking in their grass, and they now see that it needs to be cut out or rooted out. And we help our people in Botswana by creating initiatives that will help the youth get jobs. We could help them through, leadership, all the things that we take for granted here in America, like job center resources, like assessment skill tests, helping them find their niche, so to say, or what they are very efficient at, or what they have a high acumen in or skill in, or what their interest is, and develop that. And we have people here within our community that could help guide them to the process of getting jobs, headhunters, where they are specifically helping others get jobs, and, make sure that they have a perfect fit and they like their job. So we should make initiatives that help promote youth job development and skills. As far as the mining industry, we should be able to have consultants to help them optimize the operation of their mines, so they could absolutely get the most profitability and the most efficiency and stability. Sustainability for their mining process, so the environment is unaffected.
Now, Botswana will hold its presidential elections this week, with President Mokgweetsi Masisi seeking a second term. And of course, the country is heading to a polls amid concerns of unemployment, with young people bearing the brunt of this particular crisis. Let's now look ahead to the elections in that country. Kyle Khumalo, SABC News reporter, joins me now in studio. Kyle, of course, this is one of the big stories this week. And a lot of people are wondering that, of course, Mokgweetsi Masisi is seeking a second term as president, but there are other, opposition parties who are eyeing this position.
Well, absolutely, Bongi. You're talking about three challenges from UDC, BPF, and others as well. And also just in the main, a lot of them, they're saying that BDP, the current governing party in Botswana, has been in charge since 1966. So with the array of the challenges that are facing the country, they say it's time for change. They talk about the economy, for example. They say it has taken such a very long time for Botswana to diversify as an economy, as opposed to just relying from the diamond export. So there's quite a lot that Botswana can do in terms of its potential. So they also do talk about issues around tourism and many other industries as well. So there's also that concern from the young stars in particular, like you just alluded, who are really just bearing the brunt of all these challenges.
And especially because these are young people, when you read what is taking place in that country, who are graduating but simply don't have jobs.
Well, that's right. And they call it a jobless economy. As much as it's dubbed as a shining star of Africa, as much as it's seen as a stable democracy, but then you have all these challenges. But also, it's been preceded by very interesting events with former President Ian Khama, with a fallout with the incumbent President Masisi, where also a lot of people that have been saying, will the Khama magic have any impact in terms of these elections, especially because we saw in 2019, Khama once again saying that, look, he wants to be voting for BDP, he's going to support an opposition party. So with his return, post-exile life in South Africa, a lot of experts are saying these will be very interesting polls in Botswana.
And you mentioned that too. Some say that it's yet another moment that could, again, resuscitate the feud that we've seen.
Well, very much so, especially because as much as we've seen him going back to court, appearing obviously over those charges, over the unlawful possession of illegal firearm, but obviously has since rejected those assertions, saying that there is no substance whatsoever to what has been leveled against him. So it's going to be very interesting to see what will really happen. But for President Masisi, saying, look, give me just a last chance to finish what I started. It's going to be my last term in Botswana. We've always had successive leaders coming in from the time of President Khama Sr. all the way to Festus Mogae, Masisi, and so many of them. So it's going to be really interesting, really.
Interesting, and especially because some are saying that, the dominance of the BDP is also under scrutiny now because it may possibly enjoy a majority, but it'll be interesting to see by how much, given its dominance previously.
Well, certainly, Bongo, especially because we do understand at this point as well, even the SADC Observer Mission is on the ground to make sure that there are very good conditions, pre-election phase and also the post-election phase. So it's going to be really interesting as to how will the BDP perform, especially because for Botswana, they've always had this one-party dominant system where the BDP has always been in charge. So even in 2019, as much as they won, some of the opposition parties went to court. Obviously, that case was dismissed where the court said everything was well run. So now the issue is that the ball is going to be in the court of the IEC of Botswana to make sure that everything is well run, especially when you look at last weekend where they really had the advance voting in some instances outside of the country and also in the country that there were ballot papers that ran out in some instances. So some opposition parties are already saying, look, the IEC really was found wanting in this regard because they should have provided a conducive environment for free, fair and peaceful elections.
And speaking about, the IEC, let's talk about how it's all to unfold and who exactly, of course, they do have the candidates they are voting for, but are they also voting for parliament and all of this? So let's talk about how it all unfolds then.
Well, absolutely. So it's general elections. It's going to be the president, the members of parliament, but also the regions in Botswana. And it's going to be a very interesting time because, Bongiwe, this is one of the countries really in Africa, especially where we've seen instabilities in other countries. This is a country all the way from 1966 where we haven't seen any just sort of upheavals happening in the country. It's always been fairly smooth. As much as you would have the challenges, would have all the concerns being raised. I think that's the legacy that's the people of Botswana are trying to sustain. That has been a message as well coming from the SADC. For example, Tanzania's president, Samia Hassan, really talk about the issue of appealing to all the political actors to make sure that they conduct themselves properly, appealing to the electorate to adhere to the electoral code of conduct in terms of making sure that Botswana is upholding all these standards, also in keeping with SADC's.
All right, all the links and will be in the description, family, so you could watch the rest of that video and the article. Let me get on to the next story. Kenya court suspends 736 million Adani power line deal. I mean, I don't know if you all know and have been following. There's a lot of foreign entities trying to vie for a piece of Kenya, or there are really a lot of foreign entities trying to entangle into Kenya's national interest or national sovereignty, and the court isn't having it. And that gentleman, William Ruto, we will speak about him in a couple of minutes, but it's just unfathomable that this Indian company, Adani Holdings, because this gentleman has many businesses. He also tried to make a 30-year deal lease with the airport, and that was shut down by the court because they said the deal was unconstitutional because there was no public participation. The people really didn't have a say in the matter. They didn't have cultural engagement, so to speak. They didn't ask the public if they wanted this deal, how it would impact them. Most of them said that this airport deal would, affect their livelihoods. It would, cause job loss, and overall, it would just put the country in further debt, and it wouldn't be a benefit. And it wouldn't be economically feasible for them to, have this deal go forward. And I mean, I don't know how, but this company continues to have, intermingle or, entangle themselves in Kenyan business and policy and national interest. And they said, let's, try this power line deal, because the Adani Holdings company also has a power plant, or they build power plants, and the state-owned company of Kenya, Electrical Transmission Company, said, let's make a strategic partnership through a business initiative, and let's do a 30-year agreement for $736 million. And they say that, this is good because it will help stop blackouts and help support economic growth. But the Law Society of Kenya's court has, they've done their due diligence and, smartly, or when I say wisely, shot down this deal because they said it was unconstitutional and tainted with secrecy, and the people of Kenya weren't able to really participate or vote on this initiative, which is unconstitutional.
Our sign language interpreter tonight is Belinda Adhiambo. The High Court has slammed the brakes on the deal between Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO, and the Adani Energy Solutions firm. Justice Bahati Nambuye issued conservatory orders after the Law Society of Kenya sought to stop the deal pending hearing and determination of their case. The deal, valued at 95.6 billion shillings, could have seen the Indian conglomerate Adani construct electricity infrastructure in parts of the country. Brenda Wanga reports on the setback, albeit temporary, on the project.
The court's decision comes in the wake of a strong defense of the multi-billion shillings electricity transmission deal between KETRACO and Adani by the government.
We are trying to accelerate.
President William Ruto, for the first time, breaking his silence on the deal that has attracted attention and criticism from sections of the country populace yesterday.
The Adani Group are investing in the transmission line. Their money, 95 billion. We would have otherwise gone to borrow that money, burden the people of Kenya. This is now a private sector investment, the same way.
Sorry to interrupt, but all I hear when this man talks is hissing.
Cation here is a private sector investment, the same way Socian is a private sector investment.
We have got no capacity as a country currently, given our fiscal space, to support or to finance such infrastructure development from our taxes. And again, we cannot continue to borrow money in the normal manner because the space for more borrowing has increasingly diminished.
The Law Society of Kenya moved to court to have the implementation of the 95.68 billion shillings agreement on grounds that the process used to reach the agreement was a constitutional sham, tainted with secrecy, and was critically short of the principles of integrity, transparency, openness, and accountability. It also averred that there was no meaningful public participation and that crucial information about that project was not disclosed. Justice Bahati Mwamuye issued the conservatory orders sought by LSK and suspended the implementation of any project agreement between KETRACO, Adani Solutions, the CS for Energy and Treasury, the Attorney General, amongst others, and its related companies and entities with regards to the development of transmission lines, substation, and any other electrical power infrastructure. He further restrained the respondents from entering into any new agreement or furthering any existing agreement with Adani regarding the development of electricity transmission infrastructure. The agreement between Adani Solutions, a subsidiary of the Adani Group, is meant to have the Indian company develop, finance, construct, and operate critical transmission lines and substations across the country on a 30-year lease.
I am very happy that for the first time in Kenya today, we will have a transmission line from here in Menengai that will go to Olkalau, that will go to Nanyuki, supply power to that region all the way to Meru. They will, for the first time, access geothermal power from Menengai.
The Law Society of Kenya also opposed this, stating that the transmission lines should not have been leased to a foreign entity as they are national assets, and doing so was a violation of the principles of transparency. The matter will be mentioned on the 11th of November in an open and physical court. The orders came as yet another case challenging another Adani deal was referred to the Chief Justice for empanelment of a multi-judge bench to hear it. LSK and the Kenya Human Rights Commission petitioned against plans to hand over the management of JKIA to Adani for a period of 30 years. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Okay, so, I mean, this guy, William Ruto, is funny. I mean, yeah, he's trying to say, yes, you will get power, transmission of power, but this deal is not good for Kenyans, and they don't know exactly what that entails, you know, the physical responsibility on the lease, and what would be the pros and cons of this deal. So it's just another, what do you say, greasing of the palms or the hands. Who knows what Ruto and the CEO of Adani, what they do or what agreement they've come to, because this isn't the only deal from this company that they try to pass or has tried to orchestrate it. I mean, it's kind of laughable. It's just, you know, if you're a Kenyan citizen, like, you see literally the sovereignty of your nation being completely bogarted, and you have this man, Ruto, who you voted in, I believe, 2022, continue to lie about his policy and helping, you know, Kenya grow economically. And yes, Team Truth, critical infrastructure is needed, but must be sovereignly protected from technocratic manipulation and control. Ruto can't be trusted to make such deals, exactly, because there's no transparency. The people really don't understand nor are educated enough to understand the implications of this deal and why it would be bad for them.
Tonight, President William Ruto has defended the 95 billion shilling Adani deal signed by the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO, with the controversial Indian company for the construction of power transmission lines and substations in the country. The president says the public-private partnership deal is not only a solution from the burden of public debt, but also a path to reducing the cost of power. Speaking in Nakuru, the president said there are several other private partnership deals lined up, including the 35-megawatt geothermal power plant that he launched in Menengai today. Stephen Leto reports.
The Adani footprints in the country has sparked protest and irked the public because of the opacity of some of the deals, from the JKA takeover and now the 95 billion shillings deal entered with KETRACO.
I think we were
Amid ongoing criticism of the deal, President Ruto argued that the collaboration was preferable to taking on additional loans or increasing taxes. While in Menengai, Nakuru County, President Ruto backed the decision to work with Adani, an Indian-based firm that seeks to invest billions of shillings in the aviation, health and power sectors.
The Adani Group are investing in the transmission line. Their money, 95 billion. We would have otherwise gone to borrow that money, burden the people of Kenya. This is now a private sector investment, the same way Keshan here is a private sector investment, the same way Sosian is a private sector investment. We will pay for that transmission line using a wheeling charge that has been negotiated.
In his attempts to sway Kenyans to back the Adani deal, President Ruto said that the current Nairobi Expressway was constructed under a similar public-private partnership, and now the China-based firm is collecting its money through toll charges.
It is also the same principle that we have used in developing the expressway in Nairobi. Private investors invested in the expressway. We are using that facility through tolling. They are collecting their investment.
President Ruto's defense on Adani deals in Kenya comes amidst layers of court cases against the Indian-based firm lodged in courts, as well as an active directive by the National Assembly to have JKIA seize any contact with the Adani until a forensic audit by the Auditor General is done and a report tabled in Parliament. Under the agreement, Adani will construct and manage key transmission lines, including a 400 kV Gilgil-Thika Mala-Konza line spanning 208.73 kilometers and a 220 kV Rongai-Kiringet-Chamosit line covering around 100 kilometers. President Ruto says his option for Adani and other private investors was due to the debt hole that the country is in.
We do not want to burden the people of Kenya with.
Yeah, too late. You already have burdened the people of Kenya, and you've already put economic stress and peril onto them, and their futures are uncertain, and you continue to pretend and lie to them that you are doing things for their benefit. Oops.
Either additional taxes or additional loans, when the private sector can do it much more efficiently.
After the signing of the multi-billion shillings deal on October 12, 2024, following months of negotiations, Energy CS Opiyo Wandayi was again hosting President Ruto in Nakuru of a public partnership with Kaishan Group from China for the construction of the 35 megawatts of geothermal power plant in Menengai.
Today, we are not only witnessing the groundbreaking for this power plant, we are also going to witness the signing of an agreement, of an MOU.
I mean, this guy is always literally trying to back up Ruto. I don't know exactly what's his relationship to him, but he's always, cheerleading his terrible policy and his, tainted strategy. I mean, this guy's always trying to use big words, or trying to use, talk to people to give them this false perception of what's going on in Kenya and what these deals entail.
Between Kaishan Group and Kenyan, Your Excellency. That agreement is going to make it possible for the first time for this country to develop green hydrogen and then ammonia and eventually get fertilizer for our agriculture.
Development of this 35 megawatts by All Power 22 adds into our power mix a considerable fraction towards our national commitment to green energy. We eagerly await, Your Excellency, the acceleration to finalize the utilization of the remaining gathered steam.
Stephen Leto, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, so we can help the people of Kenya by bringing in actual people who will help them, develop their energy infrastructure at a sustainable rate that they can handle, all while training them on different different energy, alternative energy sources such as geothermal, as that gentleman spoke about earlier, wind and solar. And we would just help consult them in this process to make sure that all of their resources and infrastructure is being utilized to benefit the people of Kenya, and also that these deals are going to stimulate economic growth and not put them in 30-year leases of debt. Just give me 1 second, family. All right, thank you. So yeah, he is William Ruto is really out here selling off Kenya to any buyer, and it's kind of disgusting. And I just hope and implore our people in the diaspora in the African continent that we need to come together and make strategic partnerships that benefit us as a whole and continue to dissuade Western influence, because they really do not care about the people of Kenya, nor their sovereignty or their rights or their national interest. It's all about who could sell off it's all about who's going to be the best buyer and who's going to give us the money. These under the hand table deals has just been going on for too long, and now the people are privy to it. And this next story is where democracy dies in Kenya, as they said in Star Wars, for all you Star Wars fans.
Now, the Supreme Court of Kenya has given the government the green light to implement the Finance Act 2023. The ruling of the Apex Court on Tuesday has now overturned previous verdict from the Court of Appeal, which had declared the law unconstitutional, hence blocking the Kenya Kwanza administration from rolling out its budget for the financial year 2023-2024. Here's Kevin Mutai with the details.
The government can continue its rollout of budget in line with the Finance Act 2023 after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of President William Ruto's led Kenya Kwanza administration. The highest court in land overturned the decision and ruling of the High Court of Appeal, which had declared the law unconstitutional. In its verdict, the Court of Appeal had held that the process leading to the enactment of the Finance Act 2023 was fundamentally flawed and in violation of the Constitution. The 2023 version was challenged in court following a round of political opposition-led street protests that turned out violent after the government used it to double the value-added tax on fuel, introduce housing levy, and raise the top personal income tax rate, among other measures. The 2024 finance bill, however, culminated in month-long protests, which almost brought the country to its knees, forcing President William Ruto to withdraw the tax plan after the protests turned deadly, leading to an insurrection against his administration. Tens of protesters lost their lives after they were allegedly felled by the police.
And listening keenly to the people of Kenya, who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign
How
the
honorable of
2024
him.
Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn.
But the recent turn of events at the Supreme Court now allows President William Ruto to roll out the budget in line with the Finance Act 2023. This followed a successful appeal filed at the Supreme Court by the Attorney General, Treasury Cabinet Secretary, and the National Assembly, among other parties, challenging the Court of Appeal judgment. The judgment was delivered by the full 7-judge bench, chaired by the Chief Justice Martha Koome. The apex court also ruled that parliament processes as well as public participation were conducted in accordance with the law. They stated in their ruling that, and I quote, "In particular, we find that the bill underwent the concurrence processes under Article 110(3) of the Constitution," adding that, and I quote, "the bill, being a money bill, did not require the consideration of the Senate and was subjected to public participation, which was adequate and satisfactory, taking into account the circumstances of enacting a Finance Act," end of quote. Additionally, the 7-judge bench found that there was no basis for the appellate court to declare the entire act unconstitutional. Kevin Mutai, NTV.
All right, and you know he has people in those courts because, yeah, by the letter of the law, you could say that it may have not been unconstitutional according to whatever legal jargon they uphold in Kenya, but let's just understand that we had about 60 people die through deleted through June and July over this protest of this bill, and the public clearly didn't want this bill passed, and the appellate court did accordingly by protecting the rights of Kenyan citizens by not allowing the bill to be brought into legislation. So it's just funny how the courts, because I studied law in my 4-year university, law, the theory of law. It's just funny that they were trying to, invoke the law itself instead of the nature of law, which is to protect the fundamental rights of sovereignty and people's innate rights. And it is innate right of the people of Kenya to hear what's going on in Kenya and to be a part of that process, and they should be able to vote on things that affect their future. Again, this bill was advised by the IMF. No one is, that isn't a secret anymore. The IMF told or suggested to Ruto that he should double the tax, increase fuel taxes, housing levies, and raise income tax on a population that's already struggling and already destitute and starving. I mean, how smart is that? So you are basing your economic policy based off of foreign entities advice, which is kind of snakish, and again, that is a conflict of interest because it's him listening to people who have no concern for Kenyans, don't live in Kenya, don't really understand the cultural implications or the cultural standards of Kenyans and what they value and what they want for their future. So why should the IMF be giving Ruto any type of advice, or why should they have any involvement in this process? It should be strictly between Ruto's administration and the people, and the people have spoken that they don't want Ruto in office. They protested this bill vehemently, and it cost some of them their lives.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your great support always. I'm so grateful for your continued support to this channel. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Kenyans, I think you remember what happened during the Gen Z's demonstration, June 25th, this year, when the young men and women stormed the parliament because of the finance bill 2024-2025 financial year. Yesterday, court came out defending William Ruto and making the Finance Act to be constitutional. The question is, when the Supreme Court is saying that the Finance Act of William Ruto is constitutional, what does they mean? Because Kenyans stormed the parliament saying no to that Finance Act. what happened? Are we having a judiciary making mistake of not reading the mood of Kenyans? Or who are these people that the judiciary of Martha Koome is serving? It is obviously William Samoei Ruto. I want you to listen to the former president of Law Society of Kenya, Advocate Nelson Havi, coming out to say that now the judiciary is having this behavior of making last mistake. They are just there to make mistakes, regardless how they are respected. They usually make mistakes, and their mistakes cannot be reversed, and the way the Supreme Court is final, nothing can happen. So it is so traumatizing and ironical that what Kenyans said no, the judiciary is coming out to say yes. And even that Finance Act made Kenyans to push William Ruto into a tight corner, leading to the withdrawal of Finance Bill 2024-2025 financial year. And number two, William Ruto dissolved his cabinet because of such kind of scenarios. Listen to Nelson Havi. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, ensure you like the video. When you like the video, you automatically support the work that I'm doing in this channel, because sometimes you watch the video and you forget liking the video. So this is just a reminder. As you watch, ensure you like the video. Let us listen to Nelson Havi.
Well, in the hierarchy of decision-making from the High Court, Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court, courts are bound to make errors. The only unfortunate aspect of an error that is made by the Supreme Court is that that error becomes the law and is not capable of being set aside by even appeal or review thereafter. Look, the Supreme Court of the Apex Court is not entirely supposed to base its decisions on what it considers to be the law alone. It is a policy court. It's supposed to read the mood of the people of Kenya. And what is the mood of the people of Kenya? After the High Court and the Court of Appeal declared the Finance Act 2023 unconstitutional, you saw the reaction of the people. They resonated with it. Thereafter, when the people of Kenya took over Parliament on the 25th of June 2024, the president was compelled to reject the Finance Bill 2024. Now, if the successor of the 2023 Act has been rejected by the people, on what basis will the Supreme Court find it to be constitutional? It's on that basis, therefore, that we term the Supreme Court to be the court of last mistake.
Last mistake.
So I think it is very crucial that we understand the type of independent institutions that we are having in this country. Like, for example, judiciary is seriously failing us under the CJ Martha Koome. In other words, the judiciary has collapsed. The judiciary is no longer there because that's serving the interest of who? William Ruto. And in fact, when we look at even the issue of Rigathi Gachagua's petition, it is so shocking that now the judges are showing an interest of favoring William Ruto's decision. But for them to stand and say no, it is not possible because they are easily being swayed. But I don't know if they are being given money or what is this they are being promised to do. That is what we are asking.
But you better believe they're giving them money, brother. This is what happens in the West. I mean, lobbying. Different companies are so huge that they get initiatives from the government, or they get laws passed. They get laws passed in their favor for their product or whatever they're selling, or whatever allows them to get tax breaks or avoid taxes. It's all one big game to them. And we see it here in the US of money is these companies buying off lobbyists and politicians to do their bidding, and it's no different here in Kenya.
Asking ourselves. So the judiciary has collapsed totally. All of a sudden, suddenly you can see what CJ Kome is doing. When he was, or rather, when she was told to form a 3-bench judge to look at the petition of Rigathi Gachagua, what did Martha Koome did? She handed over that duty to her Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu to appoint those 3 judges, which it was not in accordance to the law. It is a mandate, constitutional mandate, not a Deputy Chief Justice. It is a constitutional mandate of the Chief Justice, Martha Koome. I saw the court arguing that it is administrative. It is not. It is constitutional mandate that has been obligated to the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, Martha Koome. But because she has failed us, and she's continuing to fail us terribly, I know it is going to be messy Kenyans, because we thought like we are having saviors. And saviors, tulikuwa nadhani maybe in judiciary. But now, we don't have National Assembly, has been pocketed by William Ruto. We don't have the Senate Assembly, has been pocketed by William Ruto. We don't have judiciary, has been pocketed by William Ruto. The same to executive, where William Ruto is the leader there. Look at other independent institutions like DCI. They're doing shoddy work. Look at the EACC, the same thing. Look at this police, the same thing. NIS, the same thing. Then you ask yourself, why is it that we are having these independent institutions that are continuing to fail us on a daily basis? So I don't think if it is something that I can say that they are doing a good job. Nothing like a good job. They have failed us, totally failed us. I don't believe that any institution can work without any direction of William Ruto. And that is why even anything that they want to do, they must consult William Ruto. The other time, when this petition of Rigathi Gachagua was filed before the court, and even the Kerugoya High Court gave a conservatory order. Do you remember what the Chief Justice Martha Koome did with William Ruto? They set aside a day of meeting to discuss how they're going to rule on that case of Rigathi Gachagua. So I think it is miserable to have such kind of leadership in this country, that they cannot serve as per the constitution. They serve as per William Ruto's mind. And that is why William Ruto is everything in this government. Yendo kila kitu. Yendo wa kuamua. If you go against his wish, you face the consequence and the repercussions. So I don't believe that William Ruto is going to change this country. He has pocketed everything, and it is his. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? Drop your opinion at the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you so much because of your great support. Please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing this video. Bye-bye till we meet in another video.
We help our brothers and sisters in Kenya by doing. We will do a strategic partnership with them through cultural engagement, where they are able to let us know what they have, what resources that are valuable to them, what industries are, going to make them the most money, like tourism, agriculture, things of that nature, instead of just, listening to a foreign entity that has no care about their livelihoods or economic future, just sees them as stats or, projections and numbers. They don't really understand the so to speak, the soul of the Kenyan people. They don't understand the Kenyan country. They don't know, the history of it. They just are like, yeah, we'll give you some money, but you have to agree to these terms. And if it's beneficial to your country or if it's going to help you, we'll see. But here's this loan, and if you put these measures in your policy, then we'll definitely give you money. That's how it is. There's really no concern for the people. President Ruto and his cabinet needs to be removed from power and replaced by Kenyans who are looking out for the people's benefit. Exactly. Because, I mean, he's already shifted his cabinet thinking it was going to, you know, bring him back in favor with the Kenyan people, but it only made them even madder. I mean, also, I mean, he got the deputy president, which is the equivalent of a vice president, impeached. So, I mean, we can only imagine what's going to happen in Kenya soon as the people are fed up and see all the corruption, and really they don't have any way other than to, I don't know, just continue to voice their opinions, and the streets go to each other and rely upon each other and start standing up to the government. We have no clue. Well, I make a projection that, you know, that a civil unrest is just going to get worse in Kenya, even worse than it was before with the finance bill during that June and July period. All right, so, you know, this is a domino effect as that finance bill has been, you know, passed or allowed by the judiciary. Now we see, oh, shocker, IMF board approves Kenya's review unlocking access to $606 million. And I will just, you know, let you hear what the IMF says about Kenya, and it's probably laughable. The IMF says that Kenya needs to improve governance and transparency in Kenya, but the fact that they are listening to and being consulted by the IMF, there isn't any improvement in governance and transparency in Kenya. And then this is a direct quote. I quote, Kenya's economy remains resilient with growth above the regional average, inflation decelerating, and external inflows supporting the shilling and buildup of external buffers despite difficult socioeconomic environment. Again, like I said, they are just talking to them like they're numbers or calculations. They say, oh, despite the socioeconomic environment, we could see growth by, you know, giving them this money, which is not true, because it's just going to continue to put them in debt because the people are not being developed in order to sustain economic growth. It's just Ruto taking loans to continue his whatever he's doing. I don't even know what he's doing. He's just a snake politician who has so many people backing him that are not Kenyans or Western entities that are literally giving it advice based off of the interest of their projections or measures or key performance indicators of what they think economic growth in Kenya looks like. And I will play these two videos and then I will close the show. And this video will give you more of a background as to why the IMF is so pervasive, or, you know, everywhere in Africa, and how they have absolutely gotten scrutiny, deservedly so, for what they're doing in Africa.
It's been weeks since protests over tax hikes began in Kenya. But despite the Ruto government withdrawing the controversial law raising taxes, the frustration of Kenyans does not seem to be dying down. fed up with the cost of living crisis, Kenyans continue to demand that Ruto must go, saying that he's not yet apologized for those who were killed during the protests against the finance bill. But the Kenyans' frustration is not just against Ruto and his government, though it was primarily directed at their failure to address Kenyan concerns. But if you look closely, Kenyans are also denouncing the IMF and World Bank, accusing them of causing and exacerbating the crisis, something which even their president actually agrees with them on.
IMF and World Bank, you have the final say. We don't have no say. We want another organization of equals.
But why exactly are the Kenyans and several African countries angry with the IMF? Well, for years now, lenders like the IMF have been unpopular in some African countries for giving loans to poor countries with extremely strict conditions. These conditions, according to them, disproportionately affect the poor. Let's first look at Kenya. Kenya's debt is $82 billion, of which they owe $8 billion to China and the rest to IMF, World Bank, US, Saudi, and others. When Ruto entered office in 2022, Kenya was pretty much in a debt crisis already. Their external debt was $62 billion, which is a whopping 67% of their GDP. So when Ruto was vice president in 2021, the government had entered into an agreement with the IMF for 38 months. IMF would help Kenya manage debt and create a conducive investment atmosphere. The conditions for the loan, however, were 1. Hiking taxes, which is what these protests were all about, and 2. Reducing fertilizer and fuel subsidies, which Ruto already did after coming to power. In fact, Ruto had made the IMF program a priority since he came to power, and this angered the people because in his campaign he had promised to put more money in people's pockets. And this anger spilled over onto the IMF as well, since it's their conditions due to which the government wanted to hike taxes. Also, the IMF backed these tax hikes. So now that the finance bill has been withdrawn, Kenya needs to fill the gaps to meet the IMF's targets. So according to analysts, Kenya will have to submit a new revenue plan. Ruto has announced some austerity measures now, like cutting out of the budget for the financial year. He also warned that now Kenya would have to borrow more due to the decision to drop the finance bill. So it could be a while before Kenya can actually come out of this whole cycle. With the IMF money and the money from lenders in countries like China, Kenya had been investing in huge infra projects like this Chinese-built railway, which was Kenya's biggest infra project since independence. Most of these loans were commercial, so they had high interest rates, and the infra spending failed to generate the expected revenue. Then COVID happened, plus agri-supply chains were disrupted in Kenya. So basically, since 2022, cost of living in the country has been soaring, as has their debt. And this led to the anger by the people, which spilled onto the streets. Hope you found this video informative. For more such content, keep watching Mint.
And that was a subsequent video and just an analysis of the IMF and what they were doing. But as we know now that this IMF has approved the Kenyans access to this money based on them allowing the finance bill to be passed. And then here's people of Kenya protesting at the headquarters of the IMF.
Now, Kenyans in Washington, D.C. have rallied at IMF headquarters demanding an end to crippling loans and economic interference. The protesters claim there is need to rise against neo-colonialism, advocating for financial sovereignty and sustainable development. Elsewhere, back in the country, early pregnancy among teenagers in Kenya.
Well, that's all I have for today, family. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. I hope everyone enjoys their Shabbat and enjoy the rest of your day. Shalom.